Trump administration has deported more than 23,000 people to countries they're not from. That's according to the humanitarian organization Refugees International. Just last week, we brought you the CBS News exclusive that men from Cuba were deported to the Central African Republic. It's one of the poorest countries in the world and is listed as a level 4 travel advisory by the State Department due to armed conflict and political instability. But the Central African Republic is just one of more than 30 countries that has agreed to accept third country deportees from the U.S. as part of the president's crackdown on illegal immigration.
To tell us more about who is being deported to these third world countries, let's bring in Alma Davis. She's an immigration lawyer at Novo Legal Group. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to ask you about the fact that there are a lot of people that are being deported who have been under what are called withholding removal protections. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me. Withholding of removal is an asylum-like form of protection. So most people are familiar with asylum, but often when somebody applies for asylum for various procedural reasons, like, for example, they didn't apply within 1 year of entering, or, during the Biden administration, there was a time when most people who crossed through the southern border were just ineligible for asylum. So people who can't get asylum for a procedural reason can still be eligible for what's called withholding of removal. And it's actually a form of relief that requires the applicant to meet a much higher burden of proof than they would have to meet to be granted asylum. But the protection that they get in the end is less in that they still have a removal order. They just can't be removed to their country of origin, but they're not on a path toward permanent residency or citizenship like they would be if they had asylum. But it's not because their case was weaker. In fact, their case has to be stronger in order to get withholding of removal. It's just that the protection that they get is lower.
Alma, I understand one of your clients could be sent to the Central African Republic this week. What can you share about that case?
Yeah, I mean, this is just a case that's really stunning and heartbreaking to me. This is a man who is from Afghanistan. His entire family served alongside the U.S. forces, and not just, in sort of minor roles, in really, really important and significant ways, and sacrificed a lot. His brother was killed fighting the Taliban alongside the U.S. forces. And he entered the United States in November of 2024. He's been detained in immigration custody ever since. He was granted withholding of removal last year, just about exactly a year ago. And the reason why he wasn't eligible for asylum was this rule I was alluding to that was put in place during the last 2 years of the Biden administration. And so he was granted withholding of removal in recognition of the fact that he faces a larger than 50% chance of being persecuted or tortured if he's returned to Afghanistan. And he's just languished in detention ever since. He has a habeas petition that's been filed for him, a petition for habeas corpus that's just been pending since March of this year. And he is slated to be deported to the Central African Republic today or tomorrow, the same country that CBS covered in that piece.
So what happens if your client is deported to the Central African Republic as far as like what you're able to do to continue helping them?
I mean, the unfortunate reality is that once somebody is deported to a third country, there really isn't very much that someone can do for them from the United States, because the United States government, DHS at that point kind of washes their hands of the case. And so, in some countries like Central African Republic, the International Organization for Migration is involved in providing services to the men and women who've been deported there, but really all they can do is take somebody back to their country of origin. And so for somebody who's fled persecution from their home country, being returned to their country of origin is really not helpful. And so it's very unclear what happens next. It's, the men and women who've been previously deported to the Central African Republic have been given these short-term visas, and we just don't know yet if at the end of the term of that visa, whether they'll be forcefully deported back to their countries of origin, whether they'll be given a little bit more time. But then the question is, time to do what? There really isn't a good or safe option for them once they've been deported to that country.
Wow. All right. Alma Davis, thank you very much, and thank you for what you're doing to help people
Thank you so
who
much for
have
having
no
me.
other options. We appreciate it.
Thank you.